Hey, I'm live. Hi, everybody. Hi, it's Barry. I'm doing one of my Free on Friday live sessions. Thank you for popping by. I'll just wait a couple of seconds for people to join and see how they're getting on. I think you might be able to, yeah, can you do that from here? Not sure. Yeah, so this is the last one of these I'll be doing before Christmas and holiday break. I'll just wait a few seconds for people to join on and we'll see how things pan out. If you're watching, you can try and post any questions if you wish. But if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about at all, please drop me a line at Barry at the Rich Pixel. I'm always more than happy to help. My role really is not really to go out and do this data capture. I don't do that anymore. But really, I teach people how to do what I'm going to show you, and hopefully lead you through so you don't have to make, or you don't make the same mistakes I've made. So let's get cracking because we've got a fair amount to get through. I'll try not to keep you too long because I know it's Friday. And for those of you who are watching today, thank you much for joining right now. But for those of you looking at the live recording of this, if you mean, yeah, you're recording on the live, but you should be able to get it on LinkedIn, or I'll post it onto my YouTube channel as well later on, so you can watch it at your leisure while you're eating your mince pies and drinking your whatever it is over the Christmas break if you're too busy. Right, so today's subject is something that's very dear to my heart, which is 360 imagery, often known as panoramas or panos. They have become more and more common rapidly over the last few years. There's a number of software companies now, people like Qpixel, etc., who are using 360 imagery as a core part of their deliverables in things like documentation and visual twins, as opposed to digital twins. But anyway, it's creating a visual environment. 360 imagery is, as I said in the blurb leading up to this, a bit of a bridesmaid when it comes to 3D visualization, and I've never really understood why. Don't get me wrong, I am a big fan of LiDAR and a big fan of all of GeoSLAM and all the great devices that are used to do that. But at the same time, what I'm trying to do, excuse me one sec, I've just got a question that popped up. That's all right, it's fine. There are lots of, it's great if you want to get XYZ coordinate accuracy. But I have to tell you, an awful lot of our clients and customers don't necessarily need it. They're more important, they're more influenced, or they particularly are interested in what the condition of something is like rather than a 2D topo or a point cloud. And the problem we have with point clouds, and our clients have with point clouds, is they're a bit pointless unless you do something with them. Yes, you can import them and look at them in beautiful apps like Naira or Cesium or whatever else you want to choose to use, but navigating them is pretty tricky. And then if you want to use them in a more proactive way, like you want to extract features or things, then you've got to go through the whole meshing process, which, although you may well see some great videos showing instant meshes, they don't always work as well as they show on LinkedIn. And we all know, if you've ever done any meshing and modeling, which I've spent the last 20 years doing, it's not quite as easy as it would appear. So I've been using 360 imagery for probably about 7 or 8 years. I really got into it because I saw it was a way of actually building an immersive environment that anyone can use. The beauty of it is that you don't need big computers to manipulate it. It's just images being shifted around, just the same as you'd use Instagram or things like that. Image files can be bigger, but there are really beautiful ways of actually making big files so that are visible on any computer, down any bandwidth, on your mobile phone, 3G, 4G, on your tablet, on your laptop, to create an immersive environment that people can engage with and share information with. There's the old adage, a picture tells 1,000 words. Well, actually it does. And sometimes you don't need necessarily the accuracy or the definitive accuracy that we constantly, or we associate with the geomatics business. Sometimes our clients don't need that. I've lost count of the number of architects who I've delivered a point cloud to who said they only look at the panos because they want to see the dilapidation and the detail and the material and what vegetation's around it rather than just a 2D drawing or an elevation. They get a much better idea if they can use imagery. And 360 imagery is one of the great ways of delivering that and capturing it. Now, what has happened as well is there's a whole series of a whole new technology that's developed around 360 imagery. And now you can get 360 image cameras that will capture stills or will capture video, and they cost from a couple of $100 for a consumer type of device you may want to use on your mountain bike or something, to much higher end ones, £30,000, $30,000 plus, say like Spheron or the Civetta or a Lizard Q, which will take work in the critical thing about 360s and solves one of the problems is the dynamic range. How do you get a 360 image when you are pointing in part of the image is pointing into the sun and the rest is backlit? So the expensive cameras deal with the HDR, the dynamic range issues, but you can get cameras now that will do a good enough job. But what I'm going to show you is some things you may not expect, or you maybe not thought that 360 imagery could be used for. Now, all the images I'm going to show you are actually used on a platform. This platform I'm using is iSight, but there are half a dozen that you could use. And the beauty of all the platforms that use 360s, or most of them, is basically it's just a website, but with a SQL database behind it. So you can attach other bits of information. Of course, you can just look at it as a pretty image and use that. But 360 imagery can be so much more. And that's what we're going to show you, or try to show you with a few examples and maybe give you a different idea of what you might be able to use them for, instead of just, oh, it's a 360 image. Obviously, there's big companies and big budgets like, say, the Matterports of the world or Ricoh, who have developed certain things. But one of the other advantages of what I'm going to show you is you can deploy all this. Why should I give all my photographs of my critical assets to look after? Who knows what's going to happen to that third party? Are they going to be bought by another countries? Are they going to go bust? Why would I put all my family silver, which is my asset information, to a third party unless I'm 100% sure that they're going to be around for a long time? The beauty of using 360 imagery is it's pretty straightforward. If you can build a website, you can build one of these platforms. In fact, I could build a platform for it. If somebody gives me a couple of $100,000, we can actually duplicate anything that you see here. It's not hard to do because it uses a simple viewing platform. And it's, if you want to go e-commerce shopping, buy a pair of black jeans or Christmas shopping, or well, you need to search for things and then aggregate it and then view it. Essentially, it's the same application. There's nothing complicated about it. We don't have millions of points that we have to move about. We don't have to worry too much about lighting. We shift imagery. And the beauty of this is we can capture this imagery with our iPhone or Android or shoot and capture phone or DSLR. In fact, any phone at all, we can actually use this, although some are better than others, as you'll find out as we go through. But I'm going to share my screen now. Excuse me while I jump on and do the bits and do the present mode. Share my screen. Hold on one second. Screen. Okay. That's not what I was looking for. Excuse me. Not that one. You don't want to see that one. Stop sharing that screen. Share my screen. Oh, hold on a sec. I've just gone right. That's the one. Yeah. Bear with me one second. Present. Share my screen. That's the one. Screen. That's the one there. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Now you can see hopefully you can see I'm going to see your screen and you can see just a churchyard. And I've got 2 or 3 examples of 360 sites that I've done, and I'm going to share a bit of information about how it works. I'll just have a quick slurp of tea. This is actually, by the way, and this is I have a tea named after me, and it's really good. Smiling, so that's my brew of choice until I get to the gin in an hour or so. Right, so what I've got here is a 360 image. I'll just turn it around so you can see what it is of. And this could be, of course, it could be anything you like. I'm just going to show, this is just a church that I love. It's called the Cathedral of the Isles, which is on Cumbria off the west coast of Scotland. Okay, now I can spin round, zoom in. I'll zoom into this thing here and we'll have a look at the level of detail we can get. Now, I have to say, this is all on a website, so there might be a little bit of latency, and also the compression of I'm using a StreamYard here and LinkedIn. You're not going to see the same level of detail and things that I can see. It's not going to be quite as sharp. If you need to see that, just drop me a line at Barry at the Rich Pixel. If I get that out of the way now for you. Barry the Rich Pixel, get free of some real estate, and I'll send you a link to it and you can play about with this yourself. Okay, so I was interested in the architecture, archaeology of this sort of place, but equally it could be all sorts of things, of course. Now I could laser scan it, but to be fair, I'm never gonna, in a chance of hell, am I gonna get the level of detail I can see here. If I just spin around, for example, I'll just spin around. I'm using a trackpad here. So, but you obviously use your mouse, and I'm sorry, making you a bit dizzy, but let's just zoom in here and see the level of detail we've got. Okay, so this is George Elizabeth, 1887, that was. Okay, so I can have a look, and so I can experience things. So if I was an architect or an environmentalist, or you're going to find me coming up with lists of all sorts of things. But this presents a way of viewing a site and sharing a site that anyone can use. All you need is an internet connection and a browser. Find that Chrome works best for most of the browsers out there, but I'm actually using this on Safari for this particular example. Now that's great. It means I can look around and explore things. But and I'm also using a pen to navigate around as well. So I've got a little pen pad. But I can also do all sorts of other things with this because it becomes a collaborative tool. Now, if I was doing some archaeological work, or let's say, I imagine this is, because I think Eugene, are you on? Okay, imagine this was a crime scene, for example. You may want to add bits of things where evidence was found and be able to link things. So let's say I've got something over here and I want to add so I'm going to draw just around here for now. Okay, let's just draw something. Okay, so I've drawn around here and I want to bring someone's attention to some sort of feature. So I'll just confirm that, and then I'll say what, oh, excuse me, get that. So it just proves it's a website. Well, actually, we're going back to the beginning here. So there's a number of sites. So I've got an overlay map here, and I'm just going to click on that one, click to view, and it will open it up for me again. Click on here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. We're going to come to that one. Let's go back. And I've got all my sites listed here. So I'm going to click on the Cathedral of the Isles and click on this one. Okay, just to prove it is a website. Okay, now I can add all sorts of bits of information to this. So in this case, let's say, for example, in this case, I've already previously added one in true Blue Peter tradition, is one I prepared earlier. And it's a record. It allows me to add notes or whatever I like to that, to update it, delete it, close it, see where it's created. And I can add all sorts of information to that. But let's say, for example, I wanted to add something here. So what I'm going to do is pick, I don't want that either. I'm going to pick a hotspot, and I'm going to just drive my Where do I want it? I want it. Let's have a look. Let's go up. Let's put it up here. I can confirm that position. Okay, and then I can information to that particular thing. So it could be if it could be evidence number, it could be a zillion different things. In this case, I want to create a work order. But I can attach anything I like. Now, there are lots of these software systems around. This one is iSight. It's a UK-made system, and it allows you to configure these sorts of tablets for pop-ups. Because as well as looking at this on my website, on my desktop, I can actually take this out on my slate, on my iPad, and do the same thing as I'm walking around. So I want to add a note to that. I may want to add a work order. We'll come back to that. More photographs, maybe a video file. Maybe I've got some video of drains or something. Okay, or other documents that I may want to link directly to that. Let's just create a work order for now. So we'll work order, and we'll enter a tag name, and we'll call it Barry, for we don't know, and then we'll enter a title for it, Barry test or something. Enter a location if we want to, a flock number, discipline. Let's say it's something to do with masonry. Okay. Who is the scope owner? Who's looking after it? Who's the maintenance manager? Who is the QS? Who is the expert who looks at those sort of things? We'll say Paul does that. Okay, and then we'll save that as a, and we could also send and save a URL path too. So that might link to, say, our SharePoint, or to anything in our document management system if we want to, or to another website. It might be a supplier's website, could be anything. So save that. Okay, and now we've got a work order. Then if I click on it, the work order is called Barry, and it will pop up here with what I've got to do. Okay, so it's a really simple way of getting people to work with this and collaborate. However, there's lots of other things I can do. I mean, I haven't used LiDAR for this, but you know what? I could do, and I did. Because I've got here, you can't really sort of zoom in a bit. Okay, this actually is the founder's tomb, and I don't have any 3D information at the moment. Saying that, we'll come back to the fact, can you get 3D models from this sort of imagery? Absolutely, you can. You can model them. There's 2 or 3 photogrammetry softwares like 3D Flow's Zephyr and Agisoft Metashape, which will take 360 imagery and produce a 3D model for it, just the same way as if you're flying it with a drone. However, in our phones these days, we've got these other devices where we may well want to add on different things. So we want to add on, let's say, for example, I want to add on insert a point cloud. So this is scanned with my phone. It's scanned with Polycam, I think, but it could easily be Recon 3D. It could be VTC or any of the EveryPoint programs. There's loads of them out there. Polycam, Recon 3D are probably 2 of the ones I use. But in this case, this is a point cloud. Okay, and I could export that as an E57 file or a LAS file, whichever I like, and then take dimensions from it a lot more accurately, which is probably what I want to do. Most people don't dig with a scalpel. They or measure. They'll still go out and measure with a tape measure for particular things. Okay, or I may well just want to show this. I don't necessarily want it. I just want a video of it. So in this case, I've got a video that I recorded of the same thing. So this is out of Polycam. So this could be a bit of detailed evidence. It could be anything you like that you can embed it in the 360 image. Now let's get rid of that. Okay, I'll close that. So that was the founder's tomb. Okay. Right, so I've got the ability here to add information and do all sorts of things. I've also got in this particular software, I've got a few things. So I can go to full screen, won't do that. I can actually take a screenshot from that, or I can copy a link and email that. So I can open, the person who clicks on the link will open up this image to this view. So if I want to share something with them, say, hey, Fred, can you have a look at this? Or Sue, can you do this or that? And this is what we mean. You can embed this into Okay. I've got some other things as well that I can do. I can hide all the tools, and I've got all the controls over here. Okay, but that's just one image. And although it's great and we get great detail, bear in mind, this is what I've done here. You're probably asking, how did I get so much detail? Well, this is a 8.5K image. So I've taken 18 images and stitched them together. It took about 40 seconds to do. It's not long. Okay. But the level of detail I'm getting here is astonishing. But let's go and explore a bit further and see what else we can do with this sort of system. Well, let's click over, and if now jump to the other side of the church, of the other side of the cathedral. Okay, and I can zoom in, and I can, from this level, I mean, I have no idea how far away that is, but if I wanted to inspect something, I can keep zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. I'm going to be able to see some great detail from here. You know, I could get this from a drone. You know, there's some fantastic drone softwares for inspection out there, and absolutely. But the thing about it is you can combine this with the same images you get from the drone. Okay, so you can combine all sorts of OBJ files, mesh files, point clouds, whatever you like, and all sorts of other images that you may want to look at, as we'll see in a second. So we can use it for inspection. And obviously, if we got closer, we'd be able to get a much closer image, but we'll show you an example of that. But one of the interesting things that I work on, in fact, the biggest project I'm working on at the moment is to do with accessibility for people with disabilities. I'm mapping those. Lots of churches, castles, heritage properties, etc. One of the difficulties is you've got these fantastic pieces of history and story factories and things people want to experience, but obviously they're not designed for people in wheelchairs who need any walking aids and things like this. So in this particular case, what we can do is go, actually, we've identified this as an accessibility issue here. Now, this could be for the people managing the facility, or it could be you put it on the website for people who want to visit and see how can they get to where they want to get. But what I've also done here is we've taken the phone, and if I click on it, okay, this is a scan, and we'll make it bigger. Okay, so I've scanned this with my Polycam. I think this actually, I did this with Recon 3D, to be fair. Okay, and it actually physically shows what you've got in terms of how do I get up there, etc. If I need to build some accessibility in terms of ramps and stuff, what do I need? Just one thing, I'll replay that as well, because it does one thing. Okay, if you notice here, I've got some little black stumpy bits. Now let's get rid of that. But if I zoom in, okay, I've got railings here. And this is one of the things about the in-house photogrammetry or in-camera photogrammetry stuff, or your NeRFs or your Gaussian splats. Sometimes they find it really difficult to render things like these railings, but for accessibility, it's really important that you see those. So you need a photograph to verify what is actually there. So sometimes photographs are a lot easier to use and verify things, gives you way more information than any point cloud is ever going to do. Okay. Now there's lots of, you can excuse me while I zoom out. I'm just using two fingers, of course, on my trackpad to do this. But there's lots of, I could get something very similar with a point cloud and stuff, and there's lots of lovely softwares for doing inspection, you know, with your Skydios or your drones or whatever you might be using to map the outside of the building. Well, that's great. And I always say, oh, isn't it fantastic? But one thing's missing, and that's the other 95% of the building, because you're getting the roof and the outside walls. But what about the inside? And that's where 360 imagery really starts to come into its own. So if I click on here, let's go up the steps. Now, obviously, if I wanted to, if I was disabled, I may well have a monitor or a screen, or I could actually get this from the website and go and visit it later on. But this is inside the building. And one of the issues with doing 360 imagery is this sort of thing. Photogrammetry and point cloud colorization inside a building is always tricky, because you've got such a variety of range. That's the word I'm looking for. Dynamic range. You've got dark shadows, bright sunsets. Now, in this case, I'm okay because I only need to take one image. But the beauty of 360 is it really lends itself to doing a thing called HDR, or what I call 32-bit photogrammetry, where you can bracket and get homogeneous, perfectly lit, without all the detail hidden by oversaturation and exposure or clipping. But in this case, I didn't have to do it. But what you'll see is I tour around this, so I can either use this for showing off, experiencing, documentation. I could use it for insurance, for doing audits and inventories, or for reconstruction as part of it. Imagine how much money an insurance company would save if they had one of these. You have things like Notre Dame and College of Art in Glasgow burnt down. You could have LiDAR to get the geometry, but if you've got 360 imagery, there's no laser scanner on the planet apart from the Regal, and they cheat because they put another camera on the top, which could come up with a level of detail that this thing could. Okay, so let's zoom in here and have a look just at this crucifix. Okay, then we're going to zoom in a bit further. Now, I think you'll agree the level of detail that's pretty spectacular. Okay, and you're never going to get anything like that with LiDAR and stuff like that. And even with the 360, what I call the prosumers, so your GoPros, your Ricos or your Insta360s, and you're never going to get quite the level of detail that you're going to get if you, in this case, use a digital camera and basically it's a nodal ninja bracket. I can do all the same things, of course, that I can add information, so that requires more visual investigation, or it might be, might be a closer image or an asset number or something like that. But for, say, insurance purposes or heritage documentation purposes, or as built before and after. And that's one of the interesting things that people are starting to do with 360 imagery now, is they're using it as part and parcel of the tender process. There's a number of water authorities, for example, who include this type of image in the tender documentation, because they found out that it does two things. First off, more people will bid for the contract because they don't have to travel to site. But the other thing is they've found is it does two things to the price of the tender. It reduces the final cost on price by a tender by 10 to 15%, because people aren't putting in the leveraging factor, the what happens if something goes wrong factor. And the other thing then is they've got more information to make good decisions. They've got an exact layout of the conditions where they can plan things, look at the space, look at the condition of materials, look at surfaces, look at what they may have to do. And also, lots of people like this because it's a before. This is what it looked like before. If any work was done and you knocked off this bit or something, then there's a visual record. And likewise, you could use it as a visual handover record of what was built. Yeah, there's lots of companies out there and lots of ways of doing it with 360 imagery and comparing it to your Revit model and stuff like that. Well, that's great, but that's only part of the parcel of it. That applies to the construction part. What about the people who are taking it over? Facilities management people, the people who are owning the property, the school who may want to show what's there to pupils. There's just a huge variety of applications from the whole process and virtually every aspect of your asset, in terms of whether it's a building or not, or infrastructure, because the same thing would apply to your railway structures, HS2, any civil engineering project where you want to hand over information, because this is a visual record, much better than a LiDAR thing, because that's basically just going to give geometry. This shows where every single crack is. And the Founder's Tomb, I think, this is the little plaque about the Founder's Tomb, and just to show you the level of detail that we can get by zooming in. Okay, so that's the Bishop of the Isles, as the guys founded it. That's the guy whose tomb you saw outside. Okay, so what we've got is 360 imagery, Google Street View on steroids, super powered, that you can use. And this is a website. This is an 8.5K image, and the way it works, and there's no latency or virtually no latency in this. The way it works is it divides this image, this 360 image, and just to prove it's 360, let's go up and have a look in the rafters. There you go. And you can see actually they've got some paints in up there and things. Okay, and but it downloads tiles, so you can view this on a 4G connection over your mobile phone or on your tablet, on any device. And of course, I could walk around there and I could start adding information. Say if I'm doing an insurance inventory, I can just click on something. Okay, confirm that. And then I can add a close-up photograph or a video file or more documents, historic documents, audit, condition, all sorts of different things. The world is your lobster. Okay, so that's 360-degree imagery, because, and that's a full bowl, 360 bowl to view. But sometimes you don't need to use all that because you're scanning clouds and you're scanning bushes and all sorts of things. So I'll show you another example of where you can use the 360 idea, but you don't necessarily need to scan the whole thing. And this is particularly used, and so this is not far from where I used to live, and this is Ley Milton Viaduct. Now this is the oldest railway viaduct in the world. Okay, it was built in the 1812s, I believe. Now, what I've done here is I've taken, people want to use it for inspection, this image. Now, obviously, I've got 360-degree imagery going all the way around me, but I've just taken a bit out of it. And all I've done here is just taken and stitched some imagery together in the same software that I've used to stitch in the other ones together. Now, this image was taken from around about 80 meters away. I couldn't get access to it. And yeah, I could have flown a drone there, and I may well still choose to fly a drone to get the underside of the arches here. But from the external, from the bank, 80 plus meters away, I've got, in this case, it's almost a gigabyte pixel image. But let's see what happens when I start to scroll in. Now that's pretty good, I think. Okay, and this was just taken with, I think, a 200mm lens, maybe 400mm lens, actually, from about 80 meters away. So I could use this for inspection. I could use it for sharing information about the thing. And to be fair, I don't need to spend 30, 50,000 pounds on a LiDAR scanner or drones or get anything to get that information. And also say I wouldn't use a LiDAR or I wouldn't use a drone because I may well need to. But this took about 5 minutes to do, less on site. All I did was just mount a camera. This is a Sony 4R. So it's around about 4 or 5 grams worth of camera and glass on a tripod and just swing around with an overlap, around about a 25% overlap, and then stitch them all together. Now, of course, I can't get dimensions accurately off this, but I could project this image onto a LiDAR image and then I would get dimensions, or I could do it alongside it. But this is just a really simple way to very quickly produce elevation drawings of, in this case, a bridge, but it could be a building, it could be a wall, it could be a tunnel, it could be anything at all. Okay, so I could do this, and I've got the same tool, so I can go here and I can say, in this case, I've said this needs some more inspection. And I can say here, I can update that and say what we need to do, and that is inspect this area. Okay, whatever. Yeah, basically just save that, and you can see that. You're smart people, you can see how that works. Okay, but then what I've then got the ability to do is then share this information with lots of other people, with the subcontractor, with other consulting engineers, with my partners. Now, I'm not saying this doesn't replace obviously arm's length inspection, but it does narrow things down and allow you to attack the visual inspection backlog very quickly, because anybody can view this. This is a website in the same way. So I've got all my assets here and I can carry on doing that. And sharing this information is pretty straightforward and simple, isn't it? Yeah, so just to recap, this was done with a 400mm lens on a tripod from around about 80 meters away. Took about less than 5 minutes. Probably most of that was setting the tripod up, to be fair, and then taking the image. Processing it, you don't have to be a genius. I just use PT GUI, which is my stitching software of choice. Others are available, but I've just used that one. I'm comfortable with it. And that took about, maybe about 10 minutes to do. And then it's online. Now imagine this as well, if this was emergency response and you were trying to get information back to site using a mixture of 360 imagery and this, I could actually load this up onto my website in a matter of minutes, and the people at control room or the people who have to come and help support whatever it might be can use that. Now, of course, there are 360 cameras as well which will go out and do this, but I'm just showing you a different way of thinking about it. But you're not going to get this level of definition and this level of detail with your GoPro. It's just not going to work. And to be fair, I don't think you're going to get much better if you're flying it really close with a drone. Okay. Right. So that's one more example. Let's get rid of them. Let's have a play about with some more. Okay. I'm going to show you something that is maybe slightly different in terms of but uses exactly the same thing. And I'm using this because it's just one of the best examples to show you the level of detail you can get from 360 imagery with very little training. I mean, I've spent a lot of time figuring a lot of this out, and obviously my business is actually, and the reason I'm doing this is because this is what I do. I train people to do this sort of thing. I don't go out and compete with you. I don't sell you a software. I don't sell you a scanner and then set up a rival business to go out and document buildings or anything. My business is actually teaching people how to do this. But let's say, for example, in this case, this is one of my favorite museums around. This is the Scottish National Maritime Museum. This building used to exist in Glasgow, but was moved brick by brick and bit of metal by bit of metal from Glasgow several years ago, and then they built this lovely museum. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because there is no way on this sweet earth, if I was to laser scan this, I would get anything like this. It would just be a mess. The amount of cleaning I'd have to do to get even anything close to this is just ridiculous. Okay, and then I'd probably fall through the floor if I was scanning it, or get lost or not see things. But in this case, I've got the ability to see things in just incredible detail. Let's zoom in. And this wall, for example, is a mural, on the wall here. Okay, I'm just scrolling. We can zoom in. And you can start to see the level of detail that we've got, and also somebody's fashion sense. It's actually, no, it's not a real person. That's a mannequin, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. That got me confused for a minute. I thought that's a health and safety problem there. There's no, he's not working at heights, but it's not a real person, guys. Which sort of brings me on to one of the things, the other applications that it's useful for. Most of the geomatics industry is delivering to a CAD environment, but that's only a very small percentage of the people who could use the data we're using. It could be health and safety for risk assessment. It could be case studies for in the nuclear industry. There's just a zillion applications. But let's show you some of the reason I love this sort of photography is the level of detail you can zoom in and get. Okay, you're not going to get anything like that at all with your scanner and your SLAM device, nowhere near that. But this is exactly the sort of information that people may want, whether that is for engineering purposes or marketing purposes or education purposes. Now, I've done some tweaking on this because ordinarily this would all be blacked out and exposed, but I've done a bit of processing on this with Capture One is my tool of choice for doing this. You could use Lightroom. I just used Capture One because it's a really great tool in terms of productivity and share information and organizing all my images. But so you could, if you have the ability to put this online and share it, then how much information would you be as an architect or as a health and safety inspector or doing a risk assessment? How much of this would you need? How useful would it be? And it isn't hard to do. I always say, look, I can train anybody to do this in about an hour on the on-site work, and maybe about, well, to make you an expert in it, about 2 days. And then you've got something you can add as a service to your normal LiDAR. Also, just to point out that you can use this image to colorize your point cloud too. So you can get rid of all the shadows and the highlights and all the artifacts you get when you start twiddling about with those. And you can use this for colorizing your point cloud as well. Okay. And this panorama is way, way better than any panorama you'll get from any laser scanner. And I don't care what their marketing department call HDR imagery. It's nothing like this. It's nothing like this quality. Okay. So, one of the other things we've found, so that in the whole life cycle of your asset, one of the things we found, or I found is really useful, is when it comes to decommissioning. Now, I've done a lot of decommissioning work, and unfortunately, I can't show you any of the jobs that I've done because they're highly sensitive, and I'd get shot, and I'd have to kill you all, which is not going to be good news. Just went up to Christmas, but what we can do, so decommissioning is largely about trying to figure out what you've got. It's a process in the nuclear industry they call characterization. There's so much stuff in a nuclear power station that's being decommissioned. There's lots of different routes depending on the contamination level, what's in it, how heavy it is, material, and every process, everything in a nuclear power plant has to go through a process called characterization. So it's given its own unique waste disposal process. This is one easy way of doing things because you can tie it up to something visual, not necessarily an old P&ID drawing. But I could go down here and say this was a bit of pipe work. Please use your imagination here, guys. If this was an old bit of pipe work or something that was filled with horrible stuff, or ironically, one of the things everybody thinks radiation is is the big issue in nuclear power stations. Not necessarily. In many cases, it has asbestos. And of course, you could use this for asbestos. So let's confirm this and then say, right, okay, I want to add a video file or a particular document. Okay, now I could set this table up here so it's like a form to fill in. So I could use that for characterization. But equally, I could use it for all my assets. Okay. And the beauty of this is I can use this and it's just a website and I can put that website wherever I want. I don't have to use a third party. I don't have to subscribe to somebody. I don't have to worry about what happens if that company goes bust. One of the issues that happened when, say, Carillion went bust was lots of people lost lots of money and lots of projects were halfway through. But the untold cost that they couldn't calculate was the cost of all the knowledge that went in hard drives into landfill. Just millions of hours of information was lost. Well, one of the really exciting parts of using 360 imagery is it comes in the nuclear industry or engineering or rail. And one of the things about us all getting older is the demographic has shifted. And so in the nuclear industry, for example, the average age of somebody in the nuclear industry is 54. So what is happening is lots of information held as what we call tacit knowledge. And tacit knowledge is the stuff that's not documented. So one of the things that you can do, and a couple of companies I work for have done work with, is they're using this 360 tour to harvest the tacit knowledge. So they can come down and go, oh, right, okay, when we install this bit, okay, we had to use X crane and stuff. So you can start just using the area hotspots and things to tell the story of your plant, to share information with other people. People who are taking on the role, or people who've never worked on that piece of plant. Because what I could easily do is I could take up a hotspot, I could draw something around here, okay, confirm that, and then I could tell a story. I could record a video or an audio, a video of how you dismantle it, or whatever it might be. So what we've got really is, as well as 360 imagery, just to look at and get things from, we can also use it as a way, as a what I call a knowledge portal, spatial knowledge, mapping knowledge, whether that's documentation or a photo that would help people make decisions, whether that's whether that's a Word document or an instruction manual or an instruction video, or a link to the supplier who you got that widget from and their website, or the warranty documents. It lends itself to a whole series of projects in the life cycle of construction, from initial feasibility, documentation, tenders. You could use it for as-built drawing, documentation to handover. That's just in the construction sector. But then if you take a step sideways, then you can start think of using it for all sorts of things, in crime scene investigation and crash, for actually documenting things. It's interesting in, say, Germany, there's sort of a split 50-50. Some police forces swear by using LiDAR, or they use 360 imagery instead, because they can use it in the dark. Because this, you can do this in the dark as well, I should say. I've got lots of examples on that. If you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see examples of where we've done it on railway lines and things like that. So that's so we can use, well, I'm trying to think of an easy way of summing up the enormity of the applications that you can use 360 imagery for. It's just, the list is limitless. And there's 3 or 4 big advantages as I see it. One, technical abilities it doesn't require much, and it certainly doesn't require a 3-year degree in land surveying to do this, but it would add to that. And obviously it's not going to give you the level of geometric control that you would get from surveying. But many people don't need that. In fact, an awful lot of people, less than you think, need it. The other thing is, it's easy to deploy. It's you can build it as a website, and you can control then where you put it, as a server in your own firewall, in your own cloud. And there's lots of other things that you can use it for. The people who sell the software, though, the skill is actually linking it to other softwares, because then it becomes really, really useful as a tool that you can use for all sorts of things. So that's really all I wanted to show you. I've got another site that what was I thinking of? No, not really. I think that's about covers it. Going back to my favorite one, though, this sort of sums up to me just the level of detail and the things that you can get from it. Obviously, this is a website. You see how quick it was to load. Okay. So this allows me to explore and share the environment with people in a detail that is better. You may not have realized you could get this level of detail from 360 imagery. Okay, that's basically sums up what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you got something from it. I've got a couple of comments here. Question. All right. I've got a couple of questions here. Right. So Casey O'Connor, thanks, Casey. Do you have a method? Oh, I'll put that up. There you go. So you can all read that for yourselves. But yes, method to create ortho mosaics from 360 imagery. Yes, you can. Everything that you see here, 360 imagery, can be used for photogrammetry, and if you can use it for photogrammetry, then you can generate all the same tools that you can if you were using photogrammetry. The limitation really is there's two things. First off, there are 360 camera systems there that work and will give you dimensions, but to be fair, you want to work in a different way. I do training courses. In fact, I've got this one coming up. Thanks for the banner. I've got this this 360 imagery mastery workshop. Sorry, blatant plug. 16th to 17th of January. Email me if you want details. I can show you the workflow, and that's really talking about photogrammetry. But going back to Casey's point, also, we create a background map with our drones. Inside, we need to create maps. Well, that's the beauty of it. I see there's lovely software out there. So you've got people like GNext and the lovely software, Trendspec, Twin City. Yeah, those guys. And they do fantastic outside buildings. But what about going inside? Well, to be fair, I think, look, if you're a drone operator, train yourself to be a 360 image operator too, because then you do both things. Why only do a tenth of the job? You've got all the other bit to inspect inside. And of course, what you can do is once you've got the photogrammetry, you can then create your dolls' houses and other things as well. There's plenty of softwares and plenty of tools out there that will allow you to do that. So you can turn this into a 360 and 3D environment. Okay, it's not going to be as accurate as if I was LiDAR scanning it with survey control. Okay, but it's not going to be that far off than GeoSlam. Little bit, not much. And if I put survey control in, I'm probably going to get as good, but with much better quality information. Okay, I'm not going to walk through it. It's going to take me longer to get the photographs, absolutely. But if I'm after detail and I'm after historical documentation or a level of detail that I can share without going into someone's ecosystem. A lot of these GeoSlam devices means you've got to process it and then it's hosted for you. With this case, you don't need to. I'm taking the photographs. It's on my hard drive. I can do what I want with them. And that's the point. And I've got a question from Jared. Well, I'm interested in easy use. I want to be able to easily, efficiently integrate. Yeah. Okay. Well, you can definitely do that. So in this case, what we've got here, Jared, is I go back here. I'll get rid of that. This is a map of the planet. So this is OpenStreet. There you go, OpenStreet. We're just using that as a platform. So if I've got my sites here, but equally I can go wherever I want to. Oh, let's go down here. Go back to my eyesight. So this is eyesight. It's one of a number of programs. There's other ones like Framents and lots of Zinc 360, and lots of survey companies have their own. But for people like, but most of them they want to get the service of taking the photographs in the first place. So that's really. But in this case, you don't need to. But I've got the whole of the planet. I could have all my sites on. You could easily use Google Street Map or a satellite view as your background to do that. And then you can go from the whole to the part, as we say in surveying. So you could have a number of sites, link that to floor plans, drawings, layouts, topographic surveys, 2D. I used to spend an awful lot of time training people to make 3D models and plans of accidents, but now I've trained over 1,000 people on how to use 360 imagery for crash scene measurement and collisions and stuff like that, and mostly for forensics actually. But definitely you could do. There's nothing that would stop you doing that apart from a subscription and how much you want to subscribe to a particular service. There's lots of them out there. I hope that answers your question, Jared, but I think we'll be talking at the to Eugene's Forensic Conference at some point anyway in next month. Is it next month? Yeah, 20 something. So, but we can have a chat about that and share some information with you if that's okay. Right, so I would like to at that point wrap up. I don't think I've got any more questions, but if I have, then you can always get me at Barry at the Rich Pixel. Okay, and I'll stop sharing now. Okay, so I'm back back with you. Barry at the Rich Pixel. I've got a couple of things coming up, which, if you don't mind, I've got my photo. No, we've done that one. I've got the not that one. There you go. Forget that. Forget the one that I've already done that one. We've got a Capture One image editing management one, which I think is a really, really useful tool. Saves me hours of time. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And I've also got this 360 imagery mastery course that I'm doing on the 16th. And if you are into Geo, if you're at Geo Week in Denver in February, then on the Monday, I'm doing a workshop, 100 tips in 100 minutes, looking at image mastery. If you go into Geo Week and you get in easy early and you're looking for something in a beer on Monday afternoon, late afternoon, please feel free to tag along. Send me an email. I'll send you the details about it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say for today. I've kept you long enough. I love this stuff, as you can tell. I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about it because it's such an easy way to share information. I can do it with my iPhone. I can do it with a camera 360. I can do it with my DSLR, and I get different levels of it. If I'm a child and want to document my heritage around me, I can do it. Okay. If I want to document my nuclear power station for decommissioning, I can use the same technology. I don't have to worry too much about investing in LiDAR and the cost of workflow of converting a point cloud into a mesh, and then where do I host it? You've got more control using 360 imagery. So that's what I wanted to share. Maybe you didn't think you could do all this with it, or maybe you did anyway. But if you need any more information, please, as I say, drop me a line. I'm always happy to share what I know. That's what I do. That's my job. That's what I get paid to do, is train people and share this information. Can I wish you all a very happy holidays. I will have safe journeys home from wherever you may be on the planet. And 2024, I'm hoping it's going to be a fantastic year. 2023 has been a bit mediocre at best. But 2024, things are looking up. Thank you for your time. Happy holidays. And I'll see you after the break. Yeah. Any questions, just drop me a line. All right. Thank you, everyone.